It's time to completely rethink ERP systems. ERP software as we know it has changed significantly. It looks a lot different. It's going to look even more different in the future, and that's what we're going to dive into here in episode 240 of Transformation Ground Control.
Welcome to Transformation Ground Control. Ground Control. The podcast that covers everything related to digital transformation. This podcast features technology agnostic and international discussions related to digital strategy, software selection, implementation, change management, business process optimization, and everything else you need to know to make your digital transformation project successful. Whether you're embarking on an ERP implementation, supply chain transformation, or any other business or digital transformation, this podcast is for you. Now, here's your host, Eric Kimberling.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ground control to Major Tom.
Hello, welcome to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 240. This is the podcast that covers everything related to digital transformation. This is the tech-agnostic view of the people, process, and technology aspects of digital transformation and change. Thanks for being here today. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent and tech-agnostic consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. And I'm excited for today's episode. We're going to get into a topic that's near and dear to my heart, something I love talking about, and that is, where is the ERP software market headed? And more specifically, how does ERP software and ERP systems as we know it, how does it look different than it might have looked in the past? And I recently posted a podcast episode of this podcast, and I've also posted a YouTube video on the topic of, is ERP software dead? And quite frankly, this podcast episode is maybe a response to that, because I got a lot of blowback from that episode and from that video about how ERP software is not dead. It's not going anywhere. But I think where I want to go today is talk about the nuance of what exactly is ERP software going to look like if it's not dead. And to be fair, when I made the comment ERP software is dead, it was more not the whole category is dead, but ERP software as we know it is dead. The ERP software of the early 2000s and the 2010s, that just is irrelevant today. And as we looked at ERP software in 2020 and beyond, or in the 2020s and beyond, things are going to continue to evolve and look a lot different than they would have in the past. Now, if we back up and look at what the history of ERP software is, ERP software was really built as a manufacturing system to help tie together disparate systems across organizations. So in the past, before the category of ERP software existed, you would have multiple systems doing different things throughout an organization, and that would create silos of data. It would create broken processes. It would create end-to-end processes that didn't exist. It was more focused on silos and functions, and creating visibility across the enterprise and creating a common tool set and a common platform was the goal and objective of the ERP software category. And more specifically, ERP software really evolved from something called MRP, which MRP stands for Material Resource Planning. And back in the early days of manufacturing, when I say the early days, I don't mean back, before the Industrial Revolution. I mean back in the early days of computing in manufacturing. MRP systems were a way to plan materials and plan production. So big manufacturers that had to buy raw materials and plan their production out on the shop floor and then figure out how they're going to stock the inventory and how they're going to get that inventory to the customers. That was all being done via these MRP systems that then evolved into ERP sometime in the 70s and 80s. That whole category emerged in ERP, and they really took off. The ERP software category really took off in the 90s and the early 2000s, in particular when the Y2K crisis happened, when companies in the late 90s were fearing that their old obsolete technologies weren't going to survive the switch over to 2000, because a lot of that programming is done with 2-digit codes for the year. And so, if the year was 1998, it would track the transaction date as 98. And the fear is that when we switch over to the year 2000, the computers would glitch out and not know what to do when we switched over to 2000, because the 2-digit year would be 00. And so the fear was that Y2K was going to create havoc or wreak havoc on organizations and their systems that they were using at the time. And that really further fueled the adoption of ERP, because at that time in the late 90s, a lot of companies were still using old mainframes and stuff that had been built in the 70s and 80s. And so it was a perfect time for ERP software to really catapult into its dominant position in the enterprise tech space. So that's how we got to where we are, and that's why so many organizations started using ERP systems, and big vendors like SAP and Baan was big in the 90s. You had Microsoft Dynamics that emerged maybe a little bit later, in the 2000s is when Dynamics started to become more and more prevalent. And of course, Oracle had been around this entire time, and they really dove into the ERP space in the late 90s and early 2000s. So you started to see these big software vendors that were investing heavily in this ERP software category, and you started to see a lot more organizations trying to move towards this utopia and this vision of having one system that could integrate all their operations, from not just manufacturing, but also financials, customer service, sales, HR. Now, as we get into robotics and Industry 4.0 and the internet and things like that, now you start to look at ways that ERP software could tie together all those different functions, all those different data sets to address some of the problems that were caused by older technologies. So now we fast forward to where we are today, and companies have been on this journey, this hopeless journey, I would say, to try and find one system that could magically solve all their problems and tie together all their technology needs into one system. And actually, for a while, that category did pretty well. I'd say in the 2000s into the 2010s, companies were actually being fairly successful at leveraging ERP technology. Now, the ERP implementations themselves weren't that successful. The failure rates were just as bad back then as they are today. 80% or more of these projects were failing, but eventually, as companies recovered and were able to actually get value out of their ERP systems, they started to see some value in having single systems tie together their entire operations. But then now, as we get into the 2020s, you start to see all these different upstarts and new technology categories and types of technologies that are disrupting that model and that utopia future state of one single ERP system. And what I mean by this is you're starting to see companies that are picking off little niches within the ERP landscape to try and do things better than any one ERP system could possibly do. And if you think about it, imagine trying to build a system to do everything that a business would need to do in any one industry, and then think about trying to do it in multiple industries. So a lot of these software providers like SAP and Oracle and Microsoft are providing enterprise-wide capabilities for a number of different industries. And even as big as these vendors are, it's impossible to keep up with the changing and evolving needs of these different industries, and it's impossible to be everything to everyone. And so that's where the cracks in the foundation of this ERP model really started to creep in. And nothing really happened with it other than just create pain and frustration for a lot of organizations that couldn't get what they needed out of their ERP systems. But then companies like Workday came along, Salesforce came along, and Workday came along as an HR technology. Salesforce came along as a CRM technology. They weren't trying to be ERP vendors. They were trying to be a solution provider that did something better than traditional ERP systems could. And they did really well at it. They did extremely well. Workday has really now positioned itself or established itself not only as an HR tech provider, but now as a financial system provider, and some would consider it an ERP provider. Same with Salesforce. Salesforce has evolved beyond just CRM to where now they've created an entire platform that is now being used by not just CRM users, but also other extended applications that are built on the Salesforce platform. So you have products like Rootstock, for example, that are built on the Salesforce platform for manufacturers, and it enables or allows manufacturers that are using Salesforce to now bolt on or add Salesforce-driven applications that are specific to manufacturing. So I bring up Workday and Salesforce as two examples of how the cracks in the foundation of the monolithic single ERP software provider, those cracks in the foundation were already starting in the early 2000s into 2010s, but as Workday and Salesforce came along and really disrupted the model, they started to prove that there were better options out there potentially, or better alternatives or additional alternatives for these ERP providers. And now, as we get into the 2020s and we're now rapidly approaching the 2030s, you're starting to see AI, you're starting to see the rise of platforms, you're seeing the rise of microservices, you're seeing the rise of low-code, no-code, all kinds of trends now, and of course, artificial intelligence. You're seeing all these types of technologies now that are really putting stress on this category of ERP software, and I think it's completely disrupting the market, and I think the ERP software space is going to look a lot different in 5 to 10 years than it looks right now. And that's really what we want to get into here in today's conversation is what is the future of ERP software? And just to give you some context in what we're going to cover today, we're going to get into our guest here in just a few minutes. We're going to have guests on the show from Priority Software, which is a mid-market ERP provider, and they're going to be on the show with us to talk about really the future of ERP, but more in the context of mid-market providers. What are some of the pros and cons of working with mid-market ERP providers that maybe aren't household names that everyone recognizes, but they're providing some great solutions that could be good fits, or at least fits worth considering for your organization. So we're going to talk to Eyal and Evgenya from Priority Software based out of Israel. They'll be on the show here in just a few minutes to chat about that topic. And then later in the show, we're going to have Baan on the show, Baan is very interesting because he's been on the show before multiple times, and he was actually one of the founding fathers of the ERP software category. But what's even more interesting about him is now he is doing his part or playing a role in the disruption of the ERP market, the same exact market that he helped create with Baan software back in the 80s. Really, he started the company in the 70s. In the 80s and 90s is when Baan grew into prominence, and actually Baan was the leading ERP provider before SAP came along and sort of overtook that mantle or that top position in the tier 1 ERP space. Baan software has since been purchased and acquired by Infor Software, and now Baan has moved on and started a company called Rapid. And it's a low-code, no-code development platform, composable ERP, microservices. It's a way to pull together multiple technologies and provide artificial intelligence and integration across multiple technologies, as well as development platform opportunity as well. So we're going to have him on the show as well. We're going to have an interview that I had with him at our recent Digital Stratosphere conference. I had a chance to sit down with him one-on-one and have about a 20-minute or so conversation about the future of ERP and whether or not ERP as we know it is going to change. And spoiler alert, the answer that we come to, or the conclusion we come to in that conversation, that yes, ERP software is indeed, in fact, going to change significantly, even more so than it already has here in the 2020s so far. So we're going to talk about what that future looks like with Baan later in the show. So we've got a lot of great stuff to talk about. Before we bring on our first guest, though, just a couple of quick additions to the threads or the themes we're seeing in the marketplace right now. And this is really interesting to look at, comparing that history of ERP that I just shared with you, now looking beyond that to what's happening now in the ERP software space that is driving some of these changes I talked about, the things that are creating further cracks in the foundation of this utopia of one single ERP software providing all my solutions that I need in one neatly packaged out-of-the-box solution, which, by the way, it sounds good in theory. I think that would be amazing if we could all find that one system that could automate our entire operations, give us one platform, one single source of truth, provide total integration, provide industry best practices, and solve all of our problems in one acquisition of one technology. The reality is it's just not realistic to get there for most organizations. For some smaller ones, yes. For smaller organizations that don't have much technology to begin with, yes, potentially you might go buy, a NetSuite or, one of the Sage Priority Software, one of the types of ERP softwares that provide technologies to the small and mid-market. If you're smaller, maybe, but if you're of any sort of size, complexity, or scale, chances are pretty high that one system is not going to solve all your problems. So the reason for that is because I mentioned a couple of these things. One is that the rise of composable ERP. So we talked about how ERP software and multiple solutions now isn't as bad of a thing as it used to be. Because the reason, getting back to the history of ERP, the reason companies were frustrated and grew tired of having multiple systems is because back in the day, when you had multiple systems, it was really hard to get those systems to talk to one another. In some cases, it was impossible because it was a closed platform, or it just didn't have the integration tools at the time to be able to tie together different systems. And it became somewhat of a, not a faux pas, but it wasn't viewed favorably. When you thought about best of breed, when you thought about integrating multiple solutions, organizations thought negatively of that. They thought of that as the antithesis of what they were trying to accomplish or what they really wanted, which is one single system. But now the reality is these development tools that have emerged, the integration tools, even the use of AI as sort of a pseudo integration type of tool, in that you can layer in AI to solve some of the integration problems that companies have, because now AI can go gather that information across multiple platforms instead of necessarily having to integrate the solutions. Although, if you do want to integrate solutions, there's plenty of tools out there. That's why companies like Boomi, for example, has really taken off, because it's creating these almost like middleware sorts of solutions that allow you to tie together multiple systems a lot more easily now than it used to be. 20 years ago, it was a pain to have to integrate systems. And it still is somewhat of a pain, because you do have to manage multiple systems. You've got to figure out, how to manage the data and ensure that the data is giving you one single source of truth. You have to make sure the data is integrated and that you don't have multiple conflicting data. So there is some pain to it, but from a technology perspective, from an architecture perspective, integrating systems now is a lot easier than it used to be. And there's a lot more options, a lot of tools out there. There's also a lot more out there in terms of custom development. Custom development oftentimes has a negative connotation, in that, why would you create something custom if you could just buy software off the shelf? And yeah, that's true. You could buy software off the shelf in most cases for a lot of different functions in your business. But what about those areas of competitive differentiator, those things that no other company can replicate or can't replicate easily, and you want to preserve that competitive advantage? You're not going to get that competitive advantage by going out and buying Microsoft or SAP or Oracle or whatever the ERP vendor is. You might be able to get good value from those providers on the more commodity types of processes, like your accounting, your GL, your accounts payable, accounts receivable, even inventory management, warehouse management, sort of your basic functions that any business has to do. But when it comes to the things that make you different, that make you really unique, if you're in the private sector, it might be because you're providing a better customer experience and you can do things faster and better than your competitors. Well, the reason you can do things faster and better than your competitors is because you have some unique advantage, some capability you've built internally that other companies don't have. And you're certainly not going to get that same capability by just going out and buying commercial off-the-shelf software. So that's why custom development and looking at these development platforms selectively. Now, you don't necessarily want to go build an entire ERP system from scratch, but it may be that certain parts of your business are so important, so unique, so much part of your secret sauce that you do want to have some sort of custom development there. Well, now with products like Rapid, which is the Baan company that we're going to come back to when we talk to Jan later in this episode, when you look at tools and products like that, now you have options. You have ways that you can build on a platform some relatively custom solutions that can then also integrate with your legacy systems. And that's another example, by the way, is Palantir. Palantir is a little bit like Rapid, maybe on a larger scale. They tend to focus a lot on big government institutions, military and government institutions. So Palantir has grown largely because big governments are the ones that are going to have the hardest time, and typically do have the hardest time moving from a legacy system to a new ERP system. So Palantir comes along and says, leave your legacy system in place, and we'll provide that top layer that integrates, provides workflows between the systems, and provides that single source of truth on the data side. It provides a single user interface, that sort of thing. So it's almost a substitute for ERP, if you will. And so, government institutions oftentimes have trouble because they're so big, they're so complex, there's so many people involved, they're oftentimes slower to change. And so that's why Palantir has really capitalized on that reality by providing something that's an alternative to ERP. And so composable ERP, custom development solutions, that's another thing that's driving a wedge or creating a larger crack in the foundation of ERP. And then you also look at some interesting things that are signs of what's happening in the space is when you look at cloud native ERP vendors like NetSuite or Workday, Salesforce, Acumatica, some of these cloud native providers. And when I say cloud native, I mean they were built in the cloud from the start. A lot of current ERP vendors are trying to move their on-premise systems to the cloud. And that requires a complete rewrite of the code, a complete rewrite of the applications. And so they're almost starting from scratch, whereas the cloud native providers, the ones that started in the cloud 20 years ago or whatever it was, like, for example, NetSuite actually started more like 30 years ago in the cloud. And this is way before cloud was at all a thing. You know, it wasn't widely accepted. And in fact, it was kind of strange at the time. I still remember thinking it was odd. Like, why would you have your applications in your data offsite somewhere else? Now, of course, you know, you look at that and say, well, that's just the way the world works. But it didn't back then. And so when NetSuite came along in 1998, when Larry Ellison and Evan Goldberg were the two that started the company, they were way ahead of their time. But they're doing better now because they were so far ahead of their time that now the rest of the world is caught up and they're actually ahead because they've always been in the cloud. So all the R&D and the innovations they've built, and it's not just NetSuite, it's also Acumatica, Salesforce, Workday, et cetera. The ones that started in the cloud have a leg up because they already have all these capabilities and advancements built in for the cloud. And so you look at these vendors and how they're doing now, those cloud-based vendors are outperforming the legacy on-premise vendors like SAP, Oracle, et cetera. When I say Oracle owns NetSuite. So yes, NetSuite's growing very quickly, but Oracle also owns Fusion, which is the legacy provider that was Oracle's only ERP system, or their main ERP system, before they bought NetSuite. They also bought a couple other software vendors along the way. But point being that these bigger on-premise incumbent ERP vendors are not growing nearly as quickly as the cloud native providers. So that's a sign that, you know, some of these mid-market, these mid-tier providers can actually do well. They can provide a lot of capabilities for the customers. So that's another thing we're seeing. Another trend is that these cloud native providers are doing exceptionally well in the market right now. You're starting to see more with two-tier ERP strategies where you might have a core ERP system, but then you might have other systems that handle some of the edge capabilities, or maybe certain locations, if you're a multinational, might be on other systems, but it all integrates back to a core ERP system. That two-tier ERP strategy and approach is becoming more and more common because if you look at what ERP is good at, ERP is really good at, I'd call it vanilla transactions. If you're, you know, trying to close the books, if you're trying to, you know, run your accounts payable, your accounts receivable, you're trying to keep track of customer orders, you're trying to manage your inventory, your warehouses. Those are all fairly commodity, you know, fairly basic. And I say fairly, it's, you know, nothing's basic. Everything has complexity. But compared to some other processes, those are the more fundamental, basic things that make sense to have in an ERP system. But then when you get to something more advanced, like when you get into advanced planning, or you get into managing your sales pipeline and your sales force, those might be things that are better handled by a third-party system that then bolts onto your core ERP. So that two-tier ERP strategy is becoming more and more common. And then you're also starting to see more industry-focused and niche alternatives. So you're starting to see a lot of companies that are providing on specific areas like construction or nonprofit, manufacturing, even distribution or retail. There's a lot of niche providers out there that you may not have heard of, but they're providing really deep, specific functionality for a specific industry. So all this is a way to say that you take all these different trends, and then, of course, you throw in AI, which we're all talking about AI. Everyone's trying to figure out where in the world AI fits into all this. But you throw in all these trends, and you can see how that utopia, that dream state, that vision of one system doing everything for us, that dream is vanishing and has vanished. And so the question now is, what is ERP going to be now and in the future? What does that look like? How should we factor that into our digital strategy? How should we make sure that our digital strategy and our digital transformations reflect the realities of where technology is headed? And we don't want to spend a ton of time and money and risk locking ourselves into an old model. And that's what some companies are still doing. They're still pursuing this old monolithic, outdated model of let's go buy S/4HANA from SAP and let's let that handle everything across our entire enterprise because it would be amazing if we could get one system to do everything for us. The reality is it rarely, if ever, happens. And so let's not fight the inevitable and let's create a digital strategy that reflects the options we have and finds the best solution or solutions that's going to get us to where we need to go. And spoiler alert, most of the time that means more than just one single ERP system. Generally speaking, you need more than that. And in fact, a lot of times I'd say the reason why so many of these digital transformations fail is because so many organizations are trying to force fit their organizations into a single inflexible ERP system that doesn't fit their needs and doesn't give them the flexibility and the innovation they need going forward. And so the question then becomes, well, then what do we do if we're not going to go with a single ERP system? And that's exactly what we want to talk about here in this episode. And so that's why we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to bring Eyal and Evgenya from Priority Software on the show. We're going to talk about how mid-market competitors can compete with and compare to some of the bigger providers. And then later in the show, after we chat with Priority Software, we're going to have Baan on the show. He's from Rapid Software, which is a low-code, no-code, AI-driven custom development type of provider. I'll let him explain his solution much better than I just did. But point being, he's the guy that created the ERP software category, and now he's creating the solution or a solution that is disrupting that market, that same category that he helped create. So lots to cover here today. We're going to bring our guests on here in just a moment, but first we'll take a quick break and we'll be back with more Transformation Ground Control.
I don't mind letting you down easy, but just give it time. If it don't hurt now, but just wait a while.
I want to share a little bit of information about Third Stage Consulting and who we are. Third Stage Consulting Group is an independent, technology agnostic provider of consulting services to help clients through their digital transformations. We help with digital strategy and software selection, as well as implementation planning. And during implementation, we provide services related to program management, organizational change, business process improvement, as well as enterprise architecture. These are just some of the services we provide. We have offices in North America as well as Europe and Asia Pacific. So if you'd like to learn more, I encourage you to check out our resource center, which includes a number of resources that will help you through your digital transformation, and you can access that for free using the QR code here or the links below. You can also reach out to me directly if you'd like to discuss your digital transformation and brainstorm ideas on how to improve where you're headed on your journey.
The last thing you want to have happen is for your digital transformation to end up in court. I've been doing this for 20 years and I have seen everything. My name is Marcus Harris. I'm a software and technology attorney focusing my practice on drafting and negotiating software-related contracts and litigating software disputes across the country. Feel free to reach out to us at taftlaw.com. We'd love to talk to you about the litigation process and what you can expect.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control. This is the tech agnostic podcast that covers everything related to digital transformation, including the people, process, and technology and strategy sides of change. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent and technology agnostic consulting provider that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. We have offices in North America as well as in Europe and Asia Pacific. So if you're in any of those parts of the world or any other part of the world, we have resources and team members near you that can help with your digital transformation journey. You can find new episodes of this show, by the way, every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. You can also go to that same website, transformationgroundcontrol.com, and see all the past episodes we've produced as well. So I'm excited to bring our guests on, our first guest of the show. This is Eyal and Evgenya from Priority Software. And the reason they're going to be on the show is to talk about David versus Goliath. What's it like being the David going up against the Goliath of the industry, and why might mid-market ERP providers be good alternatives that you should consider, even if you're a larger organization. And so we're going to talk about the pros and the cons of the mid-market ERP vendors, not just Priority Software, but from their perspective in general. What are the differences between these mid-market providers, and what are some of those alternatives that you don't want to miss out on, that you at least want to consider as part of your digital strategy? So we're going to talk about all that and more with Eyal and Evgenya from Priority. So I want to thank you both for being here today.
Thank you.
So real quickly, Eyal, why don't we start with you? And if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do at Priority Software, and just a little bit about your background.
I'll try to make it short because it's a long story. So basically, I'm at Priority for like 3.5 years. I've been working with Priority almost 20 years, but I had my own company. It was a software house that built add-ons for Priority that got acquired by Priority in 2022. And after it got acquired, they asked me, okay, what do you want to do now? And I said, one of the things I like to do, how to do, is find, business problems and technologies that can solve them. So I think innovation could be fit to my needs. And I said, okay, go for it. And because I went to innovation, because everybody's talking about AI, so I jumped on AI and started doing AI in multiple places. So I'm doing now AI for the company itself, the transformation internally of the company to AI, and forward facing our customers and resellers, looking at the product side too. So this is something that is we're highly investing in what we call AI ERP. And of course, I'm trying to find ISVs, independent software vendors, that can really help us leverage Priority and bring their added value, and giving them the ability to go to our market and go to our customers and make a big impact at the end of the day, combining all of these together.
Right. So you've seen how Priority Software has been able to take a dose of its own medicine as it relates to AI. You're not just building features and functions in the software, but you actually have gone through your own transformation to use AI as well.
As you're saying, we're walking the walk and we're talking the talk.
Yes. Very good. Well, great to have you here. And I'm going to come back to some of the points you just made. I want to come back and ask you some questions around that, particularly as it relates to how you as a company what are some of the lessons from having used and implemented AI, but we'll come back to that in a moment. But before we do that, Evgenya, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, so nice to see everyone today. Nice to meet you. I'm actually in the product organization. I'm the product director for the ERP in Priority, essentially for the Priority ERP. And I joined relatively recently. I joined around 8 months ago. And before that, I was actually in a lot of adjacent spaces, building AI products for planning, for demand forecasting, for B2B sales, also some kind of chat your ERP type of capabilities that I tried to build prior to Priority as well. So a lot of that AI background, I've been doing AI product management for more than 10 years. So it's my bread and butter as well. And I'm happy to bring those capabilities as part of Priority, right? This is that I'm very, very excited about it.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It's an exciting time to be in the enterprise technology space right now. I'm always
For sure.
I always think it'd be fat, even though we are in the space, we're not a vendor, but I always think as a vendor, it's got to be a real exciting time for you guys, especially. Want to just turn to the audience real quickly and thank several people for joining. Darian on LinkedIn says, good morning, everyone. Hello. Thanks for joining, Darian. Charlotte joining from Dallas, Texas. Thank you for being here today, Charlotte. Son, I believe it's Son from LinkedIn says, good morning, everyone. Yuri says, good morning. And Yossi says hello as well. So thank you for everyone joining here today and letting us know where in the world they're joining from. So a couple, just to start, I guess, to set the context for the conversation here, this whole David versus Goliath theme. Tell us a little bit about why should a company in general, if we set aside AI and features and functions and all that stuff, why should a company consider a mid-tier, a mid-market ERP vendor like Priority Software instead of just going down the path of, say, a Microsoft or an Oracle or SAP, one of the household brand names? What does a mid-market ERP vendor like Priority Software provide that maybe a bigger provider can't?
You want me to start, or if you want
No,
to
no,
start?
you should start. You should start, yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to give my how do you call it, 2 cents, my point of view, and I think the first thing we're trying to bring to the market is innovation, and because it's kind of my bread and butter. But what I'm thinking of, I recently was 2 prospects in the States, and of course they're asking priority who. I mean, nobody knows priority like Oracle or SAP, and the first prospect said, okay, we're looking for something that will give us a solution that will be really easy we have like 300 employees that are doing sales orders, but ERP is complicated. It's very, it's a lot of screens, and we have a big turnover of people over here. We want to give them something simple. And because Priority is a platform and has a lot of options, I said, okay, we have something called a portal generator. So let's use the portal generator instead of giving them standard ERP, give them this like slick user interface, like an e-commerce user interface that'll be really easy for them to use. And instead of educating them how to use an ERP system, this could be a great solution for this employees that have a high turnover over there. Another customer, I think, and of course we're competing with the big ERPs, and everybody said we can solve it, but we need to bring a third party. So I think when looking at Priority, we have a very big toolbox. Another company I remember I was in, and again, we're coming as an underdog. We have to bring something that is innovative. Unless I said, okay, if you're just more of the same like the other ERPs, why should we take you? So another big prospect, there is a big logistics company, and one of the things we have in Priority is an internal WMS module. So I said, okay, this is out of the box. You don't need to go like to a third party now, and this is going to be like an easy implementation. And look at the latest thing I did now. So I took out of my bag this strip of LED lights and this IoT connector, and I said, look, you put it in the warehouse, and the moment you put it, do you know when there's like this parking lot? Then you go to a parking lot, you see this green light that tells you this is like an empty parking lot. So in the same concept, I said, now we have these LED lights that Priority is going to tell you, your storekeepers, each one is going to get a different color. It's going to say, now, this is like a landing strip. This is the bins that you need to go to pick from or put away. And again, all these gadgets, all these things that we do with Priority, and the ability and the flexibility, this is a game changer. And this is, I think, what captures the customers to think, okay, they know how to give us a solution to our specific needs and specific problems. So this is the kind of short stories that we're competing with the big, let's say the big ERP ones. And I think this is what makes the difference: the innovation, the agility, the concept of it's a platform, and giving you the ability to be self-sufficient. This is very important: the ability to be self-sufficient. So this is some small story. So if you want,
I would add to that we bring, and again, it's a platform play, right? We bring a lot of APIs, and the platform is very extensible. So essentially, it's very easy to build and connect other things to Priority, and as Eyal mentioned, you can really do it by yourself, right? You don't necessarily need like a third party or an integrator or something like that, and it just makes things so much faster, right? So this is like the speed of implementation that you can get with a type of solution like ours compared to the bigger names you mentioned.
Right. And the other thing too is if you're a buyer, if you're an organization that is looking to buy an ERP system or any sort of enterprise tech, you also have to think about, how important am I going to be to that particular vendor? Because if you're, for example, if you're going to go buy, let's say Microsoft D365 or Oracle NetSuite, whatever it is, you're just going to be a small fish in a huge pond. And sometimes working with a mid-market vendor, you just get more attention. They don't have tens of thousands of clients that they're trying to balance competing demands for. So I think there's some merit in that as well, especially if you're dealing with a product that can scale. If it's a product that can scale with your growth, why not have a vendor or a partner that's going to treat you accordingly, treat you with more attention and whatnot.
Really truly treat you as a partner and not a customer, right? It's a slightly different mindset, I think.
Yeah. And so if we think about some of your bigger customers, let's focus on your bigger customers that maybe have looked past just the brand names and have really dug in to understand what Priority can offer them. How do you balance that sort of innovation that you need to provide as a smaller, when I say smaller, I don't mean you're not small, but you're smaller than SAP, let's say, but being a mid-market provider, how do you balance that innovation and that speed that you just talked about? And how do you balance that with remaining stable, reliable, scalable? How do you find that right balance for your customers?
So basically, Priority, as I said before, it's a platform, and it's built on top of layers. So everything we're doing, we're putting like another layer that is basically consuming the other layer. So it's not like we're rechanging or we're doing everything. So if we have like now this AI layer that gives you the option now to do requests with natural language, it's behind the scene activating the business layer and the data layer. So at the end of the day, it's very strict. I mean, it's not like we're changing the system. So it's like just coming on top. The moment it's on top, the risk is minimal, because at the end of the day, it's continuing with your credentials, and it's continuing with all the business rules and all the customizations. And again, we're always thinking how it can be customizable and you can be self-sufficient. And as a platform, the platform gives you the ability to leverage, all these capabilities fast, and of course with minimal changes. It's just putting things on top of it or the previous layers.
Right. Anything you'd add to that, Evgenya?
No, I think Eyal has just laid it out very nicely.
So maybe Evgenya, you can help with this question around APIs and integration. So what you talked about how it's a platform, and you talked about the extensibility. You and Eyal have talked about the extensibility, but how do APIs and integrations help mid-market vendors compete? Why is that so important? When you talk about this being a platform and the extensibility of the platform, why is that so important for mid-market companies?
So I think it is. The thing is, ERP is no longer the only player, right? In a company's tech stack, right? Well, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the ERP was the only product, right? And right now we need to be more extensible. I think the big difference between very big companies, right, and a mid-market company is that sometimes when big companies need to kind of extend their current solution or connect other platforms or other kind of software extensions to their existing stack, then they can bring, I don't know, an Accenture, okay, just using them as an example, and then they will have this like very long-term project of integrating ERP A with this technical product B and technical product C, and it becomes a very long and very expensive journey, which I think in our case we give our customers a kind of a shortcut there, right? We're telling them you don't need to bring those integrators, which are expensive, and those are long and very demanding projects. You can just do everything much faster, right? And we have different types of APIs. We have APIs that are allowing you to connect Priority to your ODBC, right? So essentially, if you have like a Power BI, you can hook that up to Priority. If you want to get data in and out, you can use APIs for that. We're actually working to add MCP to Priority. So essentially, all the futuristic kind of AI, LLM type of capabilities would be able to talk to Priority as well. And under the same kind of security, permissions, business logic, and all that layer that Eyal has mentioned. So essentially, we're giving our customers a lot of tools to be able to do a lot of those things on their own, right, or with minimal investment, as opposed to having to bring those big integration projects, which are difficult, right? We all know they're difficult to implement and roll out. So,
right.
I can add just a few more stuff around it. So it's not only APIs that are giving you the ability to talk to Priority from the outside world. We can always consume APIs that are from in priority to the outside world. So we can actually trigger something in a specific event or form. Now I want to call this API service that could be an AI service that does some optimization, or an AI service that does summarization or whatever. So it's not only inbound, it's outbound too. At the end of the day, the layers of the API, we build like 4 different types of API to fit specific needs. So we have like an API for the user interface. It's like it's reflecting everything that goes in the forms in priority as an API. So when someone wants to interact, it's that he doesn't need to write any business code or any business logic on the other side. I think this is very unique to Priority. It's called Web SDK, giving the ability to actually take virtually the components in the ERP and talk with a mobile app or with a web app or even with an AI app. And there's the ODBC, and ODBC is something that is like obsolete, but it's not the ODBC that we're used to. It's ODBC on the business layer, meaning that you're not actually talking to the database. You can use SQL to talk to the business layer, and then you get so this is great for BIs, but at the end of the day, you don't need to struggle with how is the structure of the tables behind the scene are built. So this is another thing. It's a new technology. It's not an old technology. It's ODBC. And of course, we have RESTful API that is like the standard of everyone. And again, this is becoming too technical probably for the guys in the crowd.
I'm not very technical, so this is super helpful and interesting for me, and I'm sure others listening are not as technical too. But those are really good points and things that I think we're starting to get into some of the intangibles of, why you might consider a mid-market or mid-tier software vendor, because there's just differences, and oftentimes it can provide more flexibility. And here's an interesting comment that actually supports. I think Eyal, you had mentioned something along these lines a few minutes ago. And I apologize, I'm going to block all of our faces for a moment. This is from Yuri on LinkedIn. It says, I'm from Armenia, based in France. I provide technical and functional services for Sage X3 clients. Currently thinking if I should focus on including AI for technical support or just focus to be the most agile in the market, because clients are complaining with their integrators as they don't react fast on demands. So, I bring this up, not as a question, but just more as a validation that, something Yuri is seeing is that, sometimes these big software vendors, these big providers, the big integrators just can't respond or react fast enough. They can't be as innovative, and they're certainly not going to be as flexible. And in many cases, the platform itself is not going to be as composable or extendable and flexible as some might want. Here's a question I have that I think is a good one. This is from Sanjay on LinkedIn. Sanjay says, how can mid-market companies offer similar benefits to larger enterprises? So mid-market vendors, I assume you mean. So, maybe, looking at some of Priority's larger clients, because you're not just dealing with smaller, retail shops or smaller distribution companies, you're dealing with some larger organizations as well. What are some of the benefits that a larger organization might benefit from by using a mid-market provider like Priority?
I think first of all, it's the agility that he can see his return of investment pretty fast, because usually when we come to a prospect, we come with he's giving us these use cases, and we're showing it can take a few minutes, a few hours, depends how we can solve it. So I think in enterprise things move slow. In the enterprise organizations, it's every change request, it takes a long time. And I think the agility of Priority could bring huge benefit, because the time to market, to implement Priority, and the ability to have everything out of the box and not start, tailoring all kind of third parties. I think this is a huge advantage. When as you said, we have a huge toolbox, and now with the AI, we're looking forward with the MCP. This is like the connector to other AI tools or AI applications. This is the future. So again, you can leverage things very fast, and we're always trying to be on the cutting edge. So I think because we're a smaller company, it gives us the ability to be, very initiatives. The innovation is it's coming from inside of us, and it gives us the ability to give fast responsive with the latest technologies, and it's a challenge. It's not easy, especially in AI. AI is like when you do a proof of concept, it works. I have this, it's like a joke, what I'm saying? Like, you're trying to do some proof of concept and you start up with taking, 100 documents and one use case and 10 users and say, oh, this works awesome. And then you hit the real world and you have like 10,000 documents that you need to deal with and multiple use cases and 1,000 customers, then it becomes much more complicated. So the gap is very big, but we're filling the gap very fast because we're a mid-sized company and not this, heavy big companies that need to, just the communication between departments is it's a hassle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to add to that something, Eric, that you mentioned before, right? That for a smaller vendor, first of all, it's more of a partnership and not like, oh, take our software and, let's not talk until the next year when you renew. And another thing which we should not forget about is that even though we're maybe a smaller vendor, we still have the same capabilities for the big modern market. So essentially, having multiple entities across the globe, having multiple operations, right? So all those complex things, different localization things, right? So financial support in different countries. So we bring all of that, right? It's not that we're slightly smaller and then you don't have the benefits or we don't cover all your kind of bases in those aspects, right? We do. And then on top of that, we're bringing the agility and kind of the underdog style that Eyal was talking about. So essentially, a customer can get the best of both.
And I want to go back to the previous question about the technical support. As I said, we're doing AI internally. So one of the things that we did, we generated this what called AI knowledge base. So, and we implemented it for our customers in our customer portal. So when a customer wants to open a service ticket, we have a deflection system. What it means, when he tries to open a ticket, it says, okay, let me try to answer it for you. And if I got it answered, then the customer got a response immediately. Doesn't have to wait in the queue, and we have less amount of open tickets on our service team. So it's a win-win. So we have it in multiple places. So think about this AI knowledge base. It can answer basically any question, and now we're even thinking to leverage it to our customers. Meaning, if a customer has his own scope of work, his own customization and his own implementations, tomorrow he can ask a question and he will take his own private data with the priority base knowledge base and combine these two to build an answer for this specific customer. And again, it affects the delivery times, it affects the support, it affects the customer satisfaction, and it of course gives you answers precise, dedicated answers, not documents to read, a precise answer for a specific question.
Right. And here, Tracy on LinkedIn here has an interesting comment that supports everything you both just said. But Tracy says, I think that smaller firms have fewer layers between the expert and the client. Oftentimes the rate of that principal is still cheaper than the large SIs charge for a consultant with less than 2 years of experience. So she's alluding to a couple things there. One is just the layers within a smaller organization looks a lot different than at a big SI or a big software vendor. So being able to work more directly or having less layers between the people that can actually affect change on a product or an implementation is critical. The other thing too, there's another, actually I wanted to ask you something real quick, Evgenya and Eyal too, if you have thoughts on this, but can you give us an example or maybe a couple examples of the type of larger organization or larger clients that you guys have, just to put it all in context and perspective? Because I know we've seen some upper mid-market types of organizations consider priority. It's not just, we've seen some smaller clients use it as well, but it's not we're not talking small scale here. I mean, can you give us a sense of the magnitude of maybe one of your larger clients, just in terms of size or complexity or industry?
Yeah, can you take it? Yeah.
You have like enterprise that have underneath them 50, 60 different sub companies or sister companies that have thousands of users and across even multiple regions. It could be they have a base, in the States, and they have like offshore in Europe or in South America. It doesn't matter. So we are dealing with the complexity of all of this, let's say, major enterprise companies, and we're doing it pretty good. And as I think about it, I think priority, one of the things that we can see, we have a lot of resellers, and the resellers are really happy to give support and give and sell priority, because at the end of the day, I think one of the things that makes an ERP a good ERP is if you have a lot of happy resellers, if they can make money out of it, if they can sell and they can actually be self-sufficient. At the end of the day, not only our customers wants to be self-sufficient, even our resellers wants to be self-sufficient. And I think the ease of use gives us the ability now to extend it with the resellers, and of course, the magnitude of companies from 2 and 3 licenses to thousands of licenses. You can see the full range of companies over here, and from all industries. We can find. I can't even think of an industry that we're not into, from healthcare to the food industry to plastics, retail, whatever you think about. I think we're already over there.
Yeah, and even complex manufacturing processes as well. So it's not like we're not just like dealing with those simpler customer use cases, right? We have customers who are using priority with manufacturing, discrete manufacturing, process-based manufacturing. So those are very complicated, even computationally very complicated processes as well. So
So the differentiator is not coming from low-hanging fruits. Remember, we're here to solve the complex problems. If we solve them, this is the differentiator.
Right. Yeah. Well, and a lot of people don't know this, and I didn't know this until more recently. But you guys have, so Israel is not a tiny country. I mean, there's a lot of commerce, a lot of diversified industry there, and you guys have a very dominant position in the ERP market there. I mean, you have a majority of the market in Israel, which a lot of people don't know. And so you think about that. Even if I just look at Israel, I look at one country, and I think of all the different types of companies, all the different types of organizations there. And to think that you've got, I think it's like 60% or more of the market in Israel was the number I think I heard or read. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, just even if because I know you don't just sell in Israel, you have clients all over the world, but within Israel, because you're based there, you tend to have a dominant market share. So I imagine there alone, you have quite a bit of lessons and capabilities you've developed over the years.
Of course, Israeli priority is like almost, I think, 40 years old. Maybe next year, I think it's going to be 40 years old. And of course, Israel is the place.
That's older than you, Eyal.
No, I'm 52.
That's right. We talked about this before. We're the exact same age. But you look like, the company might be older than you.
Not yet. We're trying to catch up.
Right.
So, yeah, Israel is the base, and I think we have like a joke. Wherever you throw a stone, you're probably going to find a priority customer. And I think the thing is, Israel is filled with an ecosystem. So it's like, think about if an employee that works in one company and then transfers to another company, the chances that he's going to work in priority in the same company, are very high. So in Israel, it's like everybody knows priority. They teach them in the academy, and I think it's like you can't. I mean, every business you talk to either heard about it, or is using it, or is going to use it in the future.
Right.
Yeah, and curiously enough, a lot of those companies in Israel are actually global. So they may start as maybe Israel-only companies, some, 15, 20 years ago, and then they start to expand globally. So essentially, they take us with them, right? We go global. So in addition to just selling in the global markets, right, we're also supporting the expansion of our, Israeli customers as they, acquire businesses overseas, or they have some offshore operations and things like that, right? So they kind of take us when their businesses become bigger and more complicated. So we're supporting them.
Sometimes they even invent new modules, either the customers or the resellers. So you have a company that just specializes in construction. So they created their own module of construction in priority. So give them the ability, the flexibility, and the ease of customizations gives the ability to, generate your own stuff. So it's either internally or can create a product and resell it on the priority market.
I'm here with Eyal and Evgenya from Priority Software. We're talking about David versus Goliath and how ERP vendors in the mid-market compare to and might provide good alternatives to the larger, big ERP providers. We've got a lot more to cover. We'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control.
How can you see into my eyes like open doors?
I'm excited to announce the release of our 2025 Digital Transformation Report. It's available now on the Third Stage Consulting website, www.thirdstage-consulting.com. This report gives you an unbiased, technology-agnostic insight to help you optimize your organization's projects for success. Get your copy today using the QR code in front of me or on our website.
I recently published my first book. It's called The Final Countdown, Strategies to Reach the Third Stage of Digital Transformation. And I wrote this book because I really wanted to find a concise way to share some of my knowledge around digital strategy and how to get started on a digital transformation journey. So in this book, I cover 3 different sections. I cover the people, process, and technology aspects of transformation, with the idea that it's meant to be a starting point, a launching pad for organizations and team members that are going through digital transformations. So I encourage you to buy this book. You can get it electronically, you can get it paperback, or you can get it in hard copy, as I'm holding here in front of you. You can get it by going to thefinalcountdown.com. You can also search for it on Amazon if you shop at Amazon. Otherwise, just go to thefinalcountdown.com. Love to hear your feedback on this book as well. So I hope you check it out and hope you enjoy.
Wake me up inside. I can't wake up. Wake me up inside. Call my name and save me from.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 240. My name's Eric Kimberling. You can find new podcast episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. You can also see past episodes of the show at that same website, transformationgroundcontrol.com. And the show is produced by Major Tom Productions and sponsored by Third Stage Consulting, which is an independent and tech-agnostic consulting provider that I work for. And we're here with Priority Software talking about David versus Goliath and how mid-market ERP vendors compare to some of the larger ERP providers. Eyal, I want to ask you a couple of questions now related to AI, and there's actually 2 questions from the same person on LinkedIn. I'm going to pull up here, and I'll sort of combine it into one question. These are both from Darian on LinkedIn. The first question she has, I'll consider this a 2-part question. First part is, can you share an example where adding this AI layer solved a real customer pain point? And then part 2 would be, what early results have you seen from the AI knowledge base? So while we're on this topic of AI, I figured I'd tackle them both, but why don't we start with this part first? But can you share an example where adding this AI layer solved a real customer pain point, like a use case example?
Mm-hmm. So we're our own guinea pigs. So I can even talk about what the game changer was here inside Priority. So when we generate this AI knowledge base, as I said, it's like this mega project that has a lot of use cases. So as I said before, think about the use cases. We have like tickets are being opened, and like each time the AI reads the ticket and says, okay, I can understand from the conversation that the problem has been solved. So automatically close the ticket instead of showing like in the service department, like there are 600-700 tickets open. Maybe it's only just 400. So people will deal only with the problems they have to deal with. And another thing we have, it's like we have this SLA of 24 hours, and we want to give the ability to give first response to the customer with some kind of resolution. So the AI, if it understands that it can solve it because it's an easy question and we have it in the knowledge base, it will already answer it. We talked about the deflection. Instead of even opening a service call, maybe we can solve the problem internally, with the customer, give them the final answer, and avoid even opening a service ticket. Another thing we did is like routing. Think about it that now you have people with special expertise, and someone is opening a finance problem, so he needs to find who is now on call and who can deal with it, and he will route it to the relevant person with expertise that knows how to deal with this service call. And again, there's a lot of things we did in marketing and in finance, so it's all around. I did things that analyze bookings. Now we're going to do churn. Put in like machine learning. It's not only machine learning because it's something that keeps on evolving. It's reinforcement learning. Again, it's the terms from the AI world that can identify churn of customers. So you can be proactive. You're not waiting for things to happen. So all of this, all around, at the end of the day, is all about scale. You're doing the job 10 times more efficient. And I can give you more examples. I have this customer, and this is like in the delivery. I'm pushing AI in our IT department, in our delivery. So one of the things, we had this company that purchased a robotic warehouse, and they wanted to integrate it to Priority. Before, we wouldn't even think about taking a project of this magnitude, of this integration to the robotic warehouse to Priority. And I told the delivery team, don't worry about it. I'm with you. Let's start doing this. You'll see, it's not too bad. And it took, we had tens of hours of conversation of how to do the integration. But then with AI, to write the gateway that talks between the robotic warehouse and Priority, it took an hour. An hour with full documentation, and it's already running live. And it's a high volume robotic warehouse that integrates to Priority. So think about it. Before, you need to have, a staff of programmers programming things for weeks. And now it's something that is been done in an hour. So as I said, AI is a game changer, and it's all about scale. You're going to make things, it's take the same company, the same amount of employees, do 10 times more everything you're doing. And it's giving you automations. Instead of doing this repetitive work you're doing on a daily basis, move it to AI. Put human in the loop, and if something is, if it's not fully baked. Even in the product itself, when we're we want to give the customers the ability now to generate rules by natural language, for example. So even when you're asking something, create a business rule. So if I got if the profit was below something, then send an email. You just say it in natural language, and it will generate the rule for you, and it will show you, this is what you asked me for. Do I approve it? Yes, and that's it. So a lot of time we can do the stuff with the human in the middle. At the end of the day, as I said, you're focused on your job. You're focused on what you need to do best, and not of this repetitive, boring work that could be done with AI automations.
Yeah, very interesting. Anything you add to that, Evgenya?
So just a second on what Eyal mentioned on the platform side, right, on the product side. So we've added a lot of those AI automation capabilities that really help customers who don't have the intricate priority knowledge. And I use it for myself because, as I said, I only joined the company 8 months ago. So there are things about the product that I don't know yet, and I'm talking to Priority, right? So I don't know all the fields, or I don't know all the settings necessarily, right? And I can talk to Priority in human language, or search for things in human language, and it just finds things for me, which is great, right? I am my own guinea pig, right? I'm telling the people that I'm the best user because I'm a dumb user, quote unquote, right? I don't know how the product works sometimes, right? So I can pretend to be this very simplistic user, and the AI helps me do the job done. But on the second side, right, we're also adding AI to other places where the implementation and the usage is a little bit different, right? So we have the demand forecasting with AI, right? So you can train the models within Priority, and you can have your AI-powered demand forecasts within the product, right? And then they feed into your demand planning process and your kind of your working orders and things like that, so you can get this kind of as a streamlined processing. And the same thing around routing optimization is something that is going to be released soon. So we're not just adding AI to kind of improve the usability functionality, but also in those kind of the day-to-day tangible use cases as well, right? So we're trying to make sure that we're covering as much as possible with different AI capabilities, right? So it's not just like the Gen AI that everybody's hyped about, but also the older, right, the things like machine learning, right, Eyal mentioned, or optimization algorithms, or things like that still bring tangible value, right? And people can see the benefits of it, and the cost savings, and the improvements and the optimization. So they see this as well in their bottom line margins, right? So I'm happy that we kind of able to cover those bases, right, and not just focus on one thing or another.
Yeah, and so many customers that we work with are so far behind on the whole digital technology journey that any sort of AI advancements are going to be huge gains potentially. So I think looking past the hype the hype around AI and the hype around automation and that sort of thing, if we look past that, I mean, you look at just having a fully integrated solution, a platform. AI is cool, yes, of course, but there's just core basic stuff that companies haven't even gotten to yet in many cases, let alone AI. AI for a lot of them is going to be down the road in the future. So I think that's a really good point. What about so coming back to this thread of David versus Goliath? If we come back to that thread here, and there's a common saying in the marketplace that no one ever got fired for hiring whoever, SAP, Microsoft, Accenture, Deloitte. First of all, that's not true, because I can give you a whole list of people that were fired for hiring one of those vendors. But there's a common misperception.
Are they looking for a job? We're hiring.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So you look at that misperception that somehow big vendors are safer or can be safer. How do you convince CIOs and other executives at your clients that, hey, maybe you've never heard of Priority, or maybe you don't know a lot about Priority software, but or any, this isn't just about Priority software, it's about any mid-market vendor. How do you convince CIOs and executives that you're not giving up risk mitigation, or you're not giving up the safety, the safety net perception of a big vendor? How do you overcome that perception with executives?
I think first of all, we're obligated to the highest standards in the market, from SaaS concept, security. We're working with AWS for everything, and we're doing all this Gartner and ADC surveys that are checking us out to be that we're capable. We're even Gartner's Magic Gartner. So I think it's not only showing that we can play the game. I think the other big benefit when we come to a CIO and we show you, okay, let's say that we passed all the tests, but look, you have a problem. I'm going to show you how we solved it immediately. I'm going to show you the result now. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to show you some presentation and say, okay, it's going to be able to do. We're coming with a solution. I want to say I can prove it. I'm not just saying the system could do it. I'm going to show you. I'm going to take your use case and I'm going to come to you and show, look, this is now the system. This is this is working. There's like an old story about one of our customers that he was looking to, the big vendors told him, the consulting groups told him, you should go with Oracle or with SAP. And he said, Priority, no, it's not. It's a small company. We don't know if it's good enough. You should always choose, like nobody got fired because choosing IBM. This, I think, was the first.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And he said, okay, you know what? Let's put all three on a test. And what they did, they said, okay, look, we want to be self-sufficient, so let's take a simple process. I want to add a field to a specific form and to a specific report, and let's see how much time it's going to take you. So the guys from SAP is, okay, give us a day or two or whatever. And Oracle was probably the same. We know we need to bring this team and this team and this team, and it probably took 2 minutes, literally 2 minutes. So I think when we prove that we walk the walk and talk the talk, and we give you something that is that works immediately, it solves your problems, I think this builds confidence. It's not something, theoretical. Look, we can do it. We've done it. And if you give us challenges, then we'll show you it can be done.
I don't know, Eyal. Sometimes those vendors, they have better PowerPoint demos than you. And kidding aside, a lot of times it's funny you say what you just said about how it took 2 minutes to create that or to demonstrate a certain example like that. But I can't tell you how many times we go to these big demos, the big vendor demos, and you're not even seeing the product. Oftentimes you're seeing screenshots in a PowerPoint deck. And if you want to do something on the fly, that's a whole, you're not getting that from a big vendor. You're lucky to get a real live demo. And that's a big frustration for a lot of our customers. And I think a lot of times the big vendors rest on their laurels a bit, or they rely too much on their brand name than solving actual customer problems. So I think that's something to be said. And I've seen it at multiple mid-market ERP vendors where whether it's at a conference or in a demo, you can just see people that know the product better. And oftentimes they can demonstrate more hands-on and more real time than any big vendor could, largely because some of those big products are so complicated that there's no one person out there that knows how to use, for example, S/4HANA. It's such a big, massive, complex, gnarly thing that you're not going to find a person that knows it all. You're going to have a whole team, a whole army of people that can, amongst them, all of them, figure it out.
So I'm saying, you know what? Challenge us. I'm saying it up front over here to everybody. If you think your ERP vendor can solve your problem, doesn't hear your pain points, challenge us. I'm sure we can deliver.
Yeah. Well, in many cases too, I mean, both of you are hands-on involved in the product itself. And Evgenya, I know you mentioned that you've only been there 8 months. You're still learning, you don't know every single field yet, but I would venture to say that, you're not just the two of you, but an average priority software sales team, when we've worked with them, they seem to know the product better. And it seems like you're dealing with people that actually have hands-on experience with the product. They're not just out trying to sell the software. They, in many cases, were involved in developing it or implementing it. So I think that's an important differentiator as well.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Evgenya.
No, I just wanted to add that I think in many cases, customers are buying not just the software for now, but also for future. Right? For the unknowns that will come in a year and in 2 years and 5 years. Again, with priorities, it's simpler to get there, right? Without having those very complicated, like you mentioned, right? You don't need 20 people to add one field if you need something, if you need to extend your existing implementation. So I think this is what we bring to the table as well, right? With our flexibility and, a lot of different ISVs that integrate with us, right, and provide. There was a question before about the different integrations that we have, right? So we have a marketplace of, a lot of different vendors that integrate with us and provide additional functionality. So customers can really see the place for growth, and we don't lock them in, right? We don't want to lock ourselves in with our vendors, and we're not trying to lock our customers in. I think this is also a big thing for when customers are looking at us.
Yeah, I think this might be the question you're referring to, Evgenya, from Darian on LinkedIn. What kind of integrations do mid-market companies ask for most often? So can you give us some examples of the types of systems that you've seen customers integrate with priority software?
So we have document processing systems. We have shipping kind of vendors. We have e-commerce. Yeah, we have some AI point solutions for specific use cases, which I won't remember, but they are in the marketplace as well, including, I think, fraud detection and other things that people can integrate. I don't know if Eyal, if you have more examples, but we really have a kind of a plethora of different tools that people can just kind of plug in, including things like automation tools and likes of N8N, etc. Right? So all those things can kind of easily plug into priority or get priority data in, data out type of operation. Eyal, do you remember some more of those integrations?
Yeah, there's a nice integration that I took by myself. I mean, this professor from the academy says, okay, I have this innovation in AI. I built this algorithm to do, let's say, optimization of task management, to find the relevant equipment, the relevant employee. And I said, okay, you know what? I'll help you integrate it into priority. And it's becoming a great success because at the end of the day, it's AI working for you. Think about it. You don't see anything. It's always only happening. Everything is happening behind the scenes. So what happens is now someone gets a task, or a storekeeper gets a pick list or whatever. It finds the most relevant personnel, taking on consider a lot of, let's say, there's a huge algorithm behind it, and this is why it specializes in AI. But the thing is, we like to, bring innovation and generate as much as ISVs as we can, because at the end of the day, this brings value to our customers. If it brings value to our customers, this is what we're looking for. So
Right.
and other integrations I can think of. Yeah, I think most of them are, like you have Docker, that is like this integration that automatically reads the supplier invoices and integrates it to Priority. It does like AI with OCR and stuff like that. Trying to think anything. Yeah, I think these are the one I can remember.
When I think that one of you, and I don't remember which one of you mentioned earlier in this conversation that, the way Priority is approaching ERP is acknowledging that ERP is not the only system that companies rely on to run their operations. And I think that's a really important point, because I think too many software vendors are trying to be everything to everyone. And you guys are saying, well, we're not going to be everything to everyone, but we are going to provide a tool that could integrate to some of these other tools that companies might need to preserve. Tracy on LinkedIn can commiserate with the PowerPoint and marketing armies and budgets from some of the larger software vendors, and I think that's a big thing. There is, I haven't seen Priority software at the major golf tournaments or the big airport billboards, but that doesn't mean they don't have a good product, and same with other mid-market vendors as well. And then a follow-up from Tracy here is, and the demo is from pre-sales, so they just do the script. Good times. So
I remember the ones with the commercial of this ice cream company in the States saying, we might not have the money to be, 30 seconds on television, but we have great ice cream.
Right.
So,
yeah. Well, it fascinates me how much these big vendors spend on marketing. I mean, you look at in the U.S. now, for example, Workday has a big ad campaign that has Billy Idol, Billy Idol, and I think the band Kiss is in there, and they use all these really big rock and roll stars basically to promote this message that there's they're enabling rock stars is basically the message. But you think, wow, how much money did that cost, and what could they have done with that money to develop a better product or to do something better to help their customers? But anyway, that's just my own personal pet peeve there.
Low-hanging fruits. They're focusing on the low-hanging fruits. That's what I said. We're looking for the hard problems to solve, and this is our differentiator. We are solving hard problems.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So what about when we look to the future? How do you see the role of cloud, SaaS, composable ERP, just the overall trends in the space that we're seeing right now? AI, of course, is one of them. How do you see the role shaping the future of competition for your customers?
So first of all, I think we're heading to, the future is unclear because first of all, it's very hard to hire employees like storekeepers and technicians and stuff like that. So people are going to try to find either robotics or automation processes. So I think a lot of the focus of what's going to go in the future is going to go to less rely on, people that are doing this repetitive, boring work, because nobody wants to work in that anymore. Everybody wants to be a manager or be an influencer or whatever. So at the end of the day, I think the main focus is going to be SaaS, AI, automations, natural language, robotics. Robotics is going to be a huge, I think, differentiator in the market in the 2-3 years, I think, from now. Any thoughts, Evgeny?
Yeah. So I wanted to kind of second on what you said. I met a retail customer recently, and he was showing me his robot for packing, e-commerce shipments, and then he would tell me like, I need to get another one, and I was asking, are you trying to save money on actual employees? And he would like, no, I'm not able to hire employees, so I'm not trying to save money on employees. I just want to be able to do the work done, right? And by the way, his robotic processing is connected to Priority, and all the sales orders and the shipping orders and everything is kind of working together with this robot. So this is very very cool, and I think AI is going to be kind of helpful in that. Potentially not in the way that people kind of assumed a couple of years ago when it was super hyped, and people would say, "Oh, I'll just hit this button and magical things and unicorns would happen." But essentially, it will make people more productive, right? It will take away parts of the manual and the repetitive and the kind of error-prone work. and we will be able to guide our users, and by we I mean Priority and other vendors as well, I assume, to guide our users into being more productive and more efficient in their day-to-day processes, just to be able to do more and to be able to do more better, right? So less errors, less problems, potentially in a more optimal way. So I think, just to add to what Eyal said, I think optimization, right? So optimization around deliveries, optimizations around shippings, optimization around manufacturing, and the human resources as well. So I think that's going to be one of the future trends also. And
Special,
translates into
special.
money, right? So people will be happy about that. Sorry, yeah?
So I'm trying to say specialized autonomous agents. This is what
Mm.
we're heading to. So it's go. You have like a AGI. It's like general artificial intelligence is something that is trained on specific. It's on specific data. It's very, let's say, it's not specialized on my domain. And I think we're looking at specialized agents that know my domain, that know my business, know how to act on a specific rules, and then you'll get accurate, let's say, responses, and at the end of the day could be autonomous. So at the end of the day, we're going to see a lot of things becoming more autonomous instead of even even voice. Today we're doing chat. Now there's a big trend. Even myself, I'm using, think about it. I'm driving my car. I'm talking to Chat GPT, and I'm saying, look, I'm going to tell you a story. I want you to generate now a website for this, or I need to write an article. I'm going to talk to you in free language, and I want you to write this article. So I'm starting to use AI just in the car. Think about the driving time I'm saving because I'm driving. I'm doing the work. AI actually is doing the work for me. I'm coming back to the office. Everything is already up and running and ready for me. Of course, now we have the ability to the tools, so it can see my calendar. It can even log into Priority. So at the end of the day, we just need to connect the dots and make things scale to be much more efficient.
Right. Yeah. No, that's super helpful, and that's a good vision of where things are headed with those different layers. When you look at agentic AI and cloud, composable ERP, all that stuff. Any other predictions you guys would leave us with as far as in the next, say, 5 years or more? Where do you think this industry is headed, especially in the mid-market, when you look at mid-market vendors like Priority? What do you think Priority is going to look like, and other mid-market providers? What are the big themes or trends that you expect to see?
I think Priority. So there is a notion, I would say, of a headless ERP, in a sense that you don't only have the traditional ERP interface, but you also have the different modalities of ERPs catered to different users. So we already have some of it with our portals that Eyal mentioned, and the mobile applications that we have. We have a kind of a generic Priority mobile applications that customers can customize, and they can essentially make them specifically and exactly what they want through the generators that we bring them. Plus, we have all the specific applications, like for the POD, your deliveries, your warehouse operations, your technicians and things like that. But I think essentially it will go even further when API could be another modality of consuming ERP, and then you could potentially put some other UI on top of it if you want, right? Or maybe your AI model could be that modality, or a chat, like a fully chat-based interface could be that modality. So I think we will have a kind of a vast, a lot of different options, right, for a lot of different types of users that would be able to consume data and functionality that sits inside ERP in the way that is best suited for them. I think that would be a good way for the market and for us as well, right? We want to make ourselves more accessible to those end users. So this is where I see, kind of a little bit of our future. Yeah, what do you say?
I think people are going to say, okay, spare me of the details and just put me in the loop if I need to handle something that you're not sure of. So things are going to become more autonomous, and we're going to involve a human only if there's something that needs to take a decision. And I think again, this is the future, and it's not too far. I think we're heading there very fast. We even now support voice, if I remember, in the mobile app, so you don't have to chat, or you don't have to use user interface. You just ask your question in voice, and this will generate the actions for you.
Right. It's good advice. And, another piece of advice that I know Priority Software has available to customers or to potential customers and everyone listening here today is a blog that you all published recently right here. If you scan the QR code at the top left side of your screen, it's a good blog there on the website, on the Priority Software website, about AI and ERP and how the two are converging, largely touching on those themes that you just mentioned, Evgenya, around AI and how that's going to potentially look in the future. So be sure to scan that QR code to read that blog and learn more about that. But I want to thank you both for being here today. This was a great conversation, and I enjoyed it and learned a lot from you both. And I appreciate having you here today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you, and we'll meet. Hopefully, we'll meet again.
Exactly.
In the AI pace, it could be probably pretty fast.
Right, exactly.
Next week. That's what you're saying, that we should meet next week, and then we'll have some new things to catch up on. So
Sagiv, the party CEO, tells me, I know how we're going to start our meeting, our weekly meeting. You're going to tell me, remember what I showed you last week? Forget it. There's something much better now, because it's only a week distance. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you both for being here today. Really appreciate your feedback there and you sharing your expertise, and thank you to the audience for the great questions as well. We've got a lot more to cover. We're going to actually get into a discussion here in just a moment with Baan, who started and founded Baan software back in the 70s. He built that software to become the leading ERP provider back in the 90s. And he sold the company to Infor Software, and then he has since left and has started a couple other companies since then, one of which is his most recent endeavor and pursuit, which is a company called Rappit, Rappit. And they provide development and microservices types of software, really technology that provides an alternative to the traditional ERP model. So we thought it'd be really interesting to hear from him where he sees the industry going. He's seen it all. He's seen the rise and the fall of the ERP software category as we know it, and now he's providing a solution and really a philosophy around how enterprise technology might look going forward. And so we're going to get his thoughts on that here in just a moment. But first, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Transformation Ground Control.
Met her in a club down in Old Soho, where you drink champagne and it tastes like Coca-Cola.
I'm excited to announce the release of our 2025 Digital Transformation Report. It's available now on the Third Stage Consulting website, www.thirdstage-consulting.com. This report gives you an unbiased, technology-agnostic insight to help you optimize your organization's projects for success. Get your copy today using the QR code in front of me or on our website.
Are you looking for ways to promote your product or service to enterprise technology decision makers and influencers throughout the world, like the ones who listen to this podcast? Major Tom Productions creates media, events, and influencer marketing for B2B technology providers. Our productions are exciting, educational, disruptive, and effective. Most importantly, they create results. Our content is unlike any other in this industry, engaging, influential, and trusted by technology buyers and influencers throughout the world. Each month, our productions reach hundreds of thousands of targeted buyers and decision makers who trust and engage with our honest and tech-agnostic content. With long-tail viral results and engagement with our content, Major Tom Productions provides a way to reach your target market and create awareness, calls to action, and a connection with potential customers. So, collaborate with us today. Learn how we can feature your product or service on podcasts such as Transformation Ground Control, Journey to S/4HANA, and Journey to Dynamics 365. We can also feature your brand on our YouTube channel called Digital Transformation with Eric Kimberling, which boasts over 100,000 subscribers and over 2 million video views per year. You can also participate in our in-person events, including our Digital Stratosphere Conference. Contact us today to learn more. We can tailor a marketing campaign that works for you. We look forward to helping more people learn more about and become engaged with your brand.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control. My name is Eric Kimberling from Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent and tech-agnostic consulting provider that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. And I'm excited to play you this interview clip, this conversation that I had. It was actually in between sessions at our recent Digital Stratosphere conference. He and I just ducked into the conference room in between sessions and just started filming. We just started talking, started filming. So it was a really interesting conversation. It was very informal, even more informal than most conversations I have with people, but really interesting because he was a keynote speaker at Digital Stratosphere, and so I got a chance to chat with him prior to his session to just get more of a condensed take on where he sees the industry headed. So this is a really interesting conversation, largely because he's a really smart guy. I really enjoy talking to him. I learn a lot from him every time I chat with him. In fact, a lot of it is because he talks so fast and he has so much going through his brain that it's hard for me to keep up. So I could watch this video 2 or 3 times and pick up things every time I watch it. So it's great talking to him. He has so much knowledge to share from, someone that helped build the entire enterprise tech industry as we know it. So a really fascinating guy. And what's even more fascinating is he has been in this industry a long time, but he is not wed to the way things were. He more than anyone I know is really pushing the boundaries of where enterprise technology is and could be headed. And I think it's super fascinating because most people at this point in their careers, having built an entire category called ERP software, it'd be easy enough for him just to sit back and just keep doing what he's been doing, keep doing more ERP type stuff, start another ERP vendor, call it good, or just retire for lack of a better word. He's in a position, I'm sure he could retire, but he's not. He likes this stuff, and I think it comes through in his discussion and in the energy he brings to the table as well. So let's play this clip here, and I hope you enjoy it. This is my discussion with Jan Baan about the future of ERP and enterprise tech and where it's headed. I feel like big ERP vendors like SAP, Oracle, and others are slowly becoming obsolete, just like back decades ago when Blockbuster Video neglected to see Netflix as a threat. Just like the BlackBerry, or the company that made BlackBerry, neglected to see that Apple could actually create a smartphone that was better and more adaptable and more future-proof for the smartphone industry. And just like those two companies, I see a lot of the same behavior that's happening here in the monolithic ERP software space. So what I want to do today is talk to one of the pioneers of the enterprise software space to talk about why the category that he in many ways helped create is now become obsolete, and in some ways he's actually helping provide an alternative to those monolithic ERP systems. So joining me for this discussion is Jan Baan, who founded the company Baan Software and is also the founder and CEO of a more recent company called Rapid. So Jan, I want to start by, first of all, thank you for being here today. I appreciate having you. And I want to know, first of all, tell us a little bit about how you started Baan. You started the company back in 1978.
Yep.
You sold the company to Infor Software in the late 90s, right? And here we are 25 years later, and you've started a company that is almost an anti-ERP. It's the opposite of what you helped create. And in many ways, you're pivoting completely away from the category that you helped create. So why is that? Like, why do you think ERP vendors are struggling right now, and why are you creating an alternative to that?
First, not anti-ERP is beyond ERP, what we see, because you still need ERP, but the question is, how are you using it? I spent 20 years and became, in 98, I Gartner as one of the leaders. With SAP, we became the leaders in SAP. SAP, the biggest, we the best, we are the most innovative one, winning the Boeing deal with 40,000 users in 1995. Where Boeing, we built all those mainframe stuff together. It means we were extremely strong in all these logistic elements. Building already the tools, dynamic enterprise modeling, etc. But in 1998, we had 5,000 people. We moved from, before the IPO, we had $60 million revenue. A few years later, $680 million. moved to a market cap close to 10 billion. Did my IPO, we became unicorn in 1995. That means everything superior, 5,000 people. Now, I'm an entrepreneur, started on my own. Then you are in an institute. There's no longer need for entrepreneurial drive. It's managerial. And second, the company became too much innovative on M&A. I felt that I make a mistake. When we did IPO, we became too much what we call shareholder value driven. But before we were more customer intimacy, and we lost that too much. And then it moved a step further from this guy's vested shares to sell, because we had an investor, General Atlantic Partners, invested a third of the shares for $33 million in 1995. They collected $1 billion a few years later. And $1 billion came with M&A stuff and all the stuff, only for selling. And it was not for sale. No. Then I came to the conclusion we are obsolete. There's no browser. Because from the money from the IPO, I invested 150 million in two interesting companies. One was WebEx. I was the only first investor in WebEx. And the other top tier. And there I learned the secret of platform as a service. And I came to the conclusion we are obsolete. And the silos are there. We should take the silos and unite them in enterprise service bus in BPM together. It was amazing. But too early, the CIOs were too afraid because you're not fired by SAP and by Oracle. And I miscalculated the adoption of the CIO and the company. They're very lazy to adopt. They call it CIOs most times was more, but we see chief protecting officer but it should be more chief process officer. Now, we built all the processes together. And with my knowledge with WebEx, etc., and enterprise service bus, we unite them all together in end-to-end processes. Amazing, but then the silos are still staying the same. And all those silos are isolated. Best of breed is then is better, but we have this terrible monolithic stuff. They are not communicating with each other, have not to do with each other. And then you see these vendors are looking to unite them, like Oracle, they call it fusion, I call it confusion. They bought everything, and the only integration is one bill. SAP, the same with Ariba, have nothing to do with each other. But it's impressing more the customer. And the customer came more locked in. Now, and then you see the element, the customer and the big system integrators unite themselves and only milking the cow. There was no customer intimacy. They call it best practice. It's nonsense. It's not operational excellence. We have to go to operating excellence. But best practice is only what the vendor likes to sell you.
Right.
And the secret, now we call it AI, and I go to the third stage. I moved again and say, okay, platform as a service is great. But I spend a lot of money to build all this stuff, like Salesforce. It's a little the infancy of the internet. And then I saw we have to go to infrastructure as a service. And the best is Google. You can have Amazon, Google, or Azure. And it brings everything to you. I mean, you have not to do it. But now you take care of all the DevOps. And we came then in the world of microservices. Now, I did already a lot. When we did this BPM stuff, we have already zero coding and all those elements. Because you move from a silo. And from the silo, we're moving to the enterprise, to the processes. But they're dying, and we don't nothing from supply chain, but here we go to the workflow. And what is workflow? A simplification of processes, but more downstream. And the more downstream, the more value. And we learned already 2 times to decouple. First from Baan, in the beginning, 25 years ago, the sensory, make BPM. And then what BPM is not doing is do the workflow. What BPM, where we did just, was this case management. We say transactional system of records.
Right.
But it's simple, it's no case management. The transaction is driven the logic, and it's dying quite early in ERP. And then we take government, etc. We have rules. And we deal with rules, and that's case management. Now we were able, in 25 years, to unite them. But you do that only to the inbound processes of the enterprise. But in today, we have now big data, we move to machine learning, we move to AI. And now we go to the human. And the human, the knowledge worker, is coming in the driver's seat. And in this knowledge worker, what we're doing there, you absorb, you take everything from the beginning. It means we are taking now this SQL data, and it means what's ERP? It's still only SQL data. We are already 20 years in big data, we do nothing. Now, we take this SQL data, we bring in 1 second in Google BigQuery from big data, and on the same moment, there's 3 databases, and at the same moment, we take the semantic data, where you look at this where you see all these elements, bring this together now. That means in Elasticsearch and all those elements.
Right.
Now, and these 3 elements are able to the whole supply chain is the river who's going there. I mean, all the data is now united in semantic data. No.
Right.
And that brings a totally new dimension, but we can even discuss it later.
Right. So I agree with you. The customer intimacy is missing. I think a lot of these software vendors are taking the entire organization and they're trying to expand their footprint to be everything to every organization. And with the speed of change of technology and business today, I just don't see how one ERP vendor can possibly provide for an entire organization, let alone an entire industry, an entire multi-industry.
And the vendor is lucky, it's vendor lock-in.
Yeah, and you're locked in at that point.
Totally locked in.
So what are the alternatives that you see emerging that might disrupt
Yeah.
or displace ERP software as the dominant enterprise technology?
Now, first of all, if you look to ERP players, be aware, we have many, but most are too simple. There are only a few who understand what we see, master production scheduling. All this complex ERP stuff is not easy. There you need the big ones. Even Microsoft is still simpler on that area.
Right.
If you look to it. And then you have the Oracles, the SAPs, and the Infor, especially, I should say. They are quite Infor, my old Baan product, very strong in all those elements. Therefore, say, let ERP stay. ECC should stay by far longer. Why should you go to HANA? Because there you have all this customization, and the stability is there. And HANA is coming from a lot of the same principles, rebuilding that. Now, first we say, don't fight with the elephant. Encapsulate them and decouple that. You decouple it, and then the data allows you, now with APIs, especially with the REST API, to bring everything in microservices. That means you take the generic specific services in ERP, let it stay there, and you can reduce tremendous a lot of users, because now you see if you have 20,000 users, only 500 users, 1,000 are dominant to feed it, but all the others are too complicated, and their job have to go back is to the complicated element of ERP. Right. The core ones knows how to do, but those who deal with all this workflow-related stuff are struggling with this ERP. And microservice help them to increase 2 times their productivity. Now, that is then what you do. It can be very simple, step by step. Bijvoorbeeld, why should you have a warehouse management solution in ERP? Is they do not understand it. There is more retail. You need other elements. Build a retail-oriented, say, warehouse management solution. A shop floor solution can be much better built in microservices for the simple people on the shop floor. Transportation is crucial to it. Do it in microservices. We do it for Hoyer, and a company over 5 billion market cap, one of the leaders there in Germany. We built a totally complete, state-of-the-art, AI-driven, microservice-driven element for transportation, where it is collaborative. But see there, ERP is not collaborative. It's dictating.
Right.
And workflow is only collaborative. And these collaborative elements are the power of microservice. You build them all individual, you synchronize them. And that is much simpler way, and you do it. And then what we say, we do it evergreen, because we are generating with Rapid, very simple, 80% of the source code immediately plain Java. No vendor lock-in.
Right.
The Java world is more attractive than the .NET world, I should say, for business. The professional, real business guys are Java. And the office type of people, spreadsheet type of people are .NET, in my opinion then.
Right.
Therefore, I like Java, and it's no locked in, it's open. And then in this microservice, you build 2 elements. One is with Rapid Developer. You make them together, and then you go to the no-code. It's called Rapid Composer, and it's more like Power App, an alternative, but it's more totally focused on this stuff, where you do everything without IT. And you do evergreen, you can permanently replace this stuff.
Right.
Now, that is will be a big change.
How do you think the big software vendors will respond? I know Microsoft has Power BI, which you mentioned, so they've got a tool that maybe addresses some of that threat to their core Microsoft D365 model. But when you look at SAP with S4HANA, or when you look at Oracle with Fusion, other vendors in the marketplace, how do you think they'll respond to this trend in this alternative
First of all,
threat?
Sinclair Ferguson already, Clayton Christensen already mentioned that if you look to Microsoft, is still missing some object-oriented stuff in Office. And the foundation is already not good in SharePoint, Office, and spreadsheets, and they believe in this one with AI to propel them. And they have Power App to optimize them. But we go deeper in Google, we take everything object-oriented already. Now, and that means what we dare do, and it's then even danger, I should say, Microsoft see they have still the power to do something there, and also their vendors. SAP will become in difficult areas. You have seen some other examples, maybe where we, with Apple or anywhere happened before, but maybe you can later on. But you see, those took every business to themselves. The core is so legacy, they are mainframe oriented, and they bring billions in AI, but then you're locked in even in AI. You were already locked in, and it's the most dangerous part what you can do. And I see they are in dangerous element. Because, and even the big system integrators the same, they are united therein. It will become, what I explained to you, is becoming more by boutique firms who optimize the business. You contribute here to the EBITDA, to the whole data stream. And here we take only ERP as the foundation for everything. And it cannot be. Becoming obsolete is good enough for the next 5 years, because you need not every day all this data. Every day is good enough.
Right.
Once a day you do master scheduling, and you need one version of the truth. You need the compliance stuff for reporting to Wall Street. Now, let it be a financial system.
Right.
Oriented for the time being.
Yeah, it's essentially almost a glorified database. You
Yeah.
know, it's keeping track of all the transactions, the information,
Exactly.
the data.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need.
But a legacy database, only a transactional database.
Yeah, not the system of innovation.
Right.
And that's where you're seeing the decoupling happening.
Yeah.
Is ERP is handling transactions and data.
Yep.
And then other systems now are able to provide that system of innovation. And you don't necessarily need to go through a multi-million-dollar ERP replacement to
totally
get
not.
to the ERP and the system of
It
innovation.
can be 10 times cheaper.
Yeah.
And no longer big bangs. And if you have perpetual license, why should you give this up for life, for eternity? Perpetual license to subscription where you're locked in.
Right.
Even your customization is better sounded already and good enough for the back end, because the value is in the front end, downstream. And the back end is now isolated from the front end. Now the opposite, you're smart people from Google or ServiceNow or anyway do some things, but if you not have a good integration of the ERP system, you have no value.
Right.
And that is what happened now. People, the kids of Google cannot build ERP. And those kids in Microservices have a big handicap, the problem. They have no idea how to deal with ERP. And then you're missing the core ERP data, and it's still the gold. Are the rough diamonds.
Right.
That will stay forever. Now, those diamonds can be cleaned up and anywhere, but the ERP is the starting point for 90% of all the data. It's still ERP.
Right.
And the most core elements. There's maybe the glacier where you have this algorithm, etc. Now, take care for that, protect it, and step by step innovate them and bring them more in a collaborative world.
Right.
And what we see therein, that's becoming real very important.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting to see the trend, and I think first of all, I imagine there's a lot of ERP software vendors watching that are not going to like this video, and that's okay because it's important for buyers.
I've been there.
Yeah, you were one, so that's why I feel like you're more credible than anyone to have this conversation. But how do you see? How should customers manage this? How should they navigate this? The fact that maybe they're already vendor locked in, maybe they're being pressured by their vendor like SAP to migrate to S/4HANA. They feel like they want to take advantage of it, maybe some of the AI tools that SAP provides, but they have to go through this big S/4HANA.
Yeah.
And so how do you navigate what's possible now with AI and what they might need in the future with ERP and AI?
Now, I'm happy to be here in Denver on your conference and to be tomorrow the keynote speaker. That means I see people should be aware people are not aware therein, and they are misleaded by vendor and by big system integrators who all have only one goal, is their own personal market cap. Now, that means I see Info one of the best therein, who are more optimized in this element, what I see also as a real professional player therein, but okay. But now, that is one element. People should be aware. And first, if you do some things, take anyway phase 0 and investigate with professionals like with you guys to be aware of what's going on. And then AI is extremely dangerous. Now AI brings you so much tools, and you generate something, we call it weekend software, but you don't know what you're generating. Now, we take AI to generate no software, but to produce it in the models and to take all this DevOps stuff. And what is the crucial part is the deployment. And the deployment is not only the Google's, the IoE, it's the DevOps, and that's what we prioritize. There is the value in. And ERP is a simple part. Could be on-prem, could be on cloud, who cares? Even good enough. And it's simple because it's not. But the complexity is in these microservices who are changing every minute and are AI driven. We call it agentic AI driven. Everything. It means everything should be generating an agent, and the agent can be never more than a butler. If the agent manages you, is the most dangerous part. Take care, and the agents can do a lot. The agent can do a lot for you, make you 5 times more productive. You see also your consulting stuff. Now that makes, but people, Drucker expected already, and they come much more. They expected already in last century that the productivity of the knowledge worker will double. It will be maybe 5 times more for the professionals. The EBITDA of companies can go more. And what is the problem? We have the 7 magnificent ones. They own 17,000 billion market cap. And they have even no value for the customer. These poor manufacturing companies have nothing, not only 1 times. And they give all this AI more to rich guys. NVIDIA is only making tools.
Right.
Now, instead of 7 companies with 17,000 billion, why could we not have 17,000 unicorns as even manufacturing companies?
Right.
They should grow.
Yeah.
Now, but where can they grow? They will multiply the EBITDA, and their market cap will even triple, will go much more. Yeah. Now they're isolated because ERP brings them no market cap. Right. ERP is not contributing to the EBITDA. It's consuming the EBITDA.
Yeah, in some cases you're actually decreasing the value of the organization, especially when you read some of these financial reports from big publicly traded companies where they highlight in the annual report to the note to investors that we have a big ERP implementation that's not going well, we're spending a lot of money on it, and then that hurts your stock price. So you think about where could I be deploying that capital better? Could I build another factory? Could I open a new location? Could I go acquire another company?
And now we see it is so simple with this microservice, and it's ongoing. It's under control. Everyone can do it with few people themselves. And even this no-code is done by the business users themselves without the IT.
Yeah.
Because we bring what we generate in Java, we bring it in 1 second in the runtime version. Here we protect all the DevOps. And there we have the simple elements where you see the spreadsheet type of stuff, where you build now in a very modern way your apps therein.
Well, I really appreciate what you're doing in the industry because I think it's always good for customers to have more options. I think the more we can do to not allow or not accept the fact that a customer needs to be locked into one vendor, if we can provide them alternatives like what you're doing with Rapid, I think that's a great thing for the industry, and I think it gives consumers or end businesses choices, and I think that's really important.
And Erik, the most important element is, are we here for customer intimacy? Customer intimacy without vendor lock is by far more, you have a customer for life.
Yeah, give them a choice
you get,
to come back to you because you've shown that customer.
You have choice, and they're coming more, and you win. Is a much more win-win element therein.
Yeah.
And we should be less greedy and more, I should see, contributing to the customer, who is even the most important one, which is paying the bill, and take care, help them, and do it. And you can do it now without even big service integrators, system integrators, because you can do it with the internal people themselves. The consultants we discussed already are changing also more and more to execute, not only investigate, but execute on elements. And you see small teams of consultants who can help the customer to the boardroom, to the EBITDA.
Right. Yeah, there's no reason you need an army of consultants to deploy new technology into your organization.
Absolutely. Should be simple.
Right. So thank you again to Jan for being part of this conversation, not only here, but his keynote presentation at Digital Stratosphere a couple weeks ago was phenomenal. It was really good, and always one of the highlights of the conference when he is there. So appreciate him joining me on camera for this conversation, and I hope you found it helpful. So that's what we've got for you today, but I'd love to hear from you, from the audience. What do you think the future of ERP looks like? What is the future of enterprise tech? Is it gonna return to normal at any time soon? Is this a new normal? Is there something we missed here that you think is going to happen that is totally different than what we've discussed here today? I'd love to hear your feedback. Just drop a comment wherever you're listening or watching today. I'd love to see what your thoughts are. So thank you for being here today. Great discussion, and I appreciate all the audience feedback as well. We'll be back next week with another episode of Transformation Ground Control. Hope you have a great week in the meantime. Take care.